grieve their loss. My constituents have shown remarkable strength, resolve, and resiliency, especially those in healthcare, first responders, postal workers, truckers, supermarket employees, and more. Without their courage and sacrifice, things would be far worse. Signs outside of Centra State Medical Center in Freehold say it all. Heroes work here. For our hospitals, the $70 billion in this legislation, on top of the $100 billion for the CARES Act, is critically needed to sustain our overworked, cash-starved hospitals that risk insolvency in large part because they have been compelled by law to postpone elective surgeries. A few days ago, Secretary Mnuchin said 30 million jobs have been saved by the Paycheck Protection Act, or program, the PPP. Today's $310 million replenishment continues and expands this historic bridge.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Businesses with forgivable loans to prevent layoffs.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Yield back.
Gentleman from Massachusetts recognized.
Madam Speaker, please to yield 30 seconds to the gentlelady from New York, the Vice Chair of the Energy and Commerce Committee, Congresswoman Clark.
Gentlelady from New York is recognized for 2 minutes.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to stand up for the 15,000 plus New Yorkers and thousands of Americans who have lost their lives due to the coronavirus, and to stand up for the tens of thousands of healthcare and essential community workers whose lives are on the line as I stand here. Today we are voting on a $480 billion interim relief package that includes $370 billion for small business loans and grants, $60 billion of which will go to mom and pop and underbanked cash and carry, $75 billion for hospitals and healthcare facilities, and $25 billion for national testing strategy.
Time has expired.
I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady's time has expired. Gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to yield 1 minute. Key member of the Ways and Means Committee, the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Schweikert.
Gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. How many of us have had the phone calls over the last couple weeks where we're talking to that small business person and you can almost hear the tears on the other side of the call? You can hear the stress, the almost panic that they're about to hurt the very people that they work with, because their business is failing, because they're desperate for what we made a promise, that payroll protection money that functionally ran out a couple weeks ago. And we know that math. And we engaged in a type of cruelty around here because we sat here and engaged in partisan. We're better than this. We knew what we had to do. Let's never do this again, because for Arizona, what we're about to vote on is 202,000 jobs. And the fact of the matter, they should have had those 2 weeks ago.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Massachusetts recognized.
Madam Speaker, please to yield 30 seconds to the gentleman from Texas, Congressman Green.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized for 30 seconds.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, with all due respect to the President, if you want to make America great again, Mr. President, have the Senate pass a bill to protect first responders by sending money to local governments. If you want to make America great again, put money in the pockets of the persons who are in food lines miles long so that they can feed their families. You want to make America great again? Admit that what you said was a hoax and let the health care workers and advisors give the advice on health care. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman's time has expired. Members are reminded to direct their remarks to the chair. Gentleman from Texas is recognized.
And Madam Speaker, you may also remind members that we are not to engage in personalities on the House floor.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you. Proud to yield 1 minute to a leader in the Financial Services Committee, the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Gonzalez.
Gentleman from Ohio is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of the Paycheck Protection Program and Health Care Enhancement Act. Throughout this crisis, our small businesses have done everything we've asked, and it is past time that we add this necessary funding to help them maintain payroll and survive this crisis. But we all know that this cannot be the end of our work in response to COVID-19. Local leaders across my Northeast Ohio district have made it clear that their finances are in dire shape. This is forcing difficult decisions about essential services, including fire departments and police officers. While we should not bail out badly run states and cities, it is vital that we provide targeted funding to municipalities like Parma, North Canton, Medina, Orrville, Rootstown, and Greene, municipalities that have done things the right way and need our help. I look forward to working with all my colleagues on this, and I yield back the remainder of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Massachusetts is
Thank you, Madam
recognized.
Speaker. I yield 30 seconds to the gentleman from Wisconsin, Congressman Pocan.
Gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized for 30 seconds.
Thank you. I support the bill before us today, but we all know it's not enough. Much more must be done in the next comprehensive aid package. We must put people first. But something also must be done about the horrific federal response to testing. FEMA and the Trump administration have been non-existent in getting states like Wisconsin the test kits, reagents, and PPE we need to reopen. If the president forces us to open too soon, more people will get sick and die, and the economy will suffer, and that will be on the president's hands. This isn't a reality show. American lives are at stake. Get us our supplies now. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
I'm pleased to yield 1 minute to a key leader of the Ways and Means Committee, the gentlelady from Indiana, Ms. WALORSKI.
Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Speaker, I want to give a shout out to the healthcare workers in Indiana's 2nd District while I'm standing here supporting this legislation. What a phenomenal job and risk they have taken. I'm supporting this legislation today, but this delay was long, too long, completely unavoidable. 2 weeks ago, Democrats blocked attempts to replenish PPP and ensure small businesses could continue making payroll and rent. They said there was no data supporting more funding, even though the program ran out of money only a week later. PPP has helped so many small businesses across my district save jobs, but others have been waiting for loans they urgently needed while Democrats played game with workers' livelihoods. As one frustrated small business owner wrote to me, I saw the speaker laughing it up on late night TV showing off her stash of high-end ice cream while I and other small business owners don't know how we will make the next payroll. I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, times are tough. Small business needs everything we can give them in a bipartisan way. I strongly urge support of this bill.
Gentlelady's time has expired. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Madam Speaker, please to yield 30 seconds to the gentleman from Virginia and my friend, Congressman Connolly.
Gentleman from Virginia is recognized for 30 seconds.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I don't know what my friend from Indiana is talking about. I do know this. Thank God the Democrats insisted that this bill helps the small businesses intended to be supported. Too many big guys got supported over the little guys, and that's what we're trying to fight for today. Second point, we got to help state and local governments. They cannot be allowed to go bankrupt. That's social Darwinism at its worst. And thirdly, we got to help our postal workers and the Postal Service to serve all Americans. Thank you.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Pleased to yield 1 minute to key member of the Ways and Means Committee, the gentleman from Kansas, Mr. Estes.
Gentleman from Kansas is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, 2 weeks ago, my Republican colleagues and I asked for more funding for the Paycheck Protection Program. More than 1.6 million small businesses and their employees were helped before the money ran out, including $4.3 billion in PPP loans for more than 26,000 small businesses in Kansas. Now, hundreds of thousands of applications sit because Congress would not act in time. As a result, small business owners are laying off employees or losing the businesses that they worked so hard to build. This bill will save 201,000 Kansas jobs. While late, this bill provides more funding to the program, representing a small step towards reopening America. This money will save businesses and jobs and allows more hardworking Americans to provide for their families. Increased testing is a vital step in our return to normalcy. This bill provides $75 billion in for healthcare providers and another $25 billion for testing capacity to combat the virus. Testing is critical to reopening Kansas and getting America going again. Today, I'm grateful for the Americans who stepped up to help their neighbors in this unprecedented time. And I will continue to show up for Kansas by supporting this legislation. I yield back.
Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield 30 seconds to the gentleman from New York, Congressman Nadler, Chairman of the Judiciary Committee.
Gentleman from New York is recognized for 30 seconds.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Small businesses in my district are desperate for assistance, but stymied by a lack of funding and unfair treatment by the big banks and the SBA. I support this legislation because it is absolutely imperative that we get small businesses a new round of funding and support. I'm also pleased this bill provides significant funding for hospitals and for expanded testing, without which we cannot safely reopen the businesses and other establishments we're trying to save. I am disappointed that despite the best efforts of my Democratic colleagues, the bill does not give state and local governments the funding and flexibility they desperately need. We must provide for these and other unmet needs in the next bill, but right now, the funds in this bill are desperately needed, and we must vote yes. I yield back.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Yes, Madam Speaker, please to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Mast.
Gentleman from Florida is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. We are a body of 435 representatives. That is true. There is only one that can demand that that gavel go up and down, and I have a very simple question for this body. Will anybody in this body stand and say that the Speaker has demanded that we act here with the urgency that our people require, with the urgency that this body is capable of? You believe this body has acted with the urgency we are capable of, that our people require?
The House will be in order. The House will be in order.
I think it is sad that there are people that believe that we have acted in urgency. There has been no haste by this body.
You said a minute.
It will be said of this time
The gentleman's time has
that
expired.
those who could do the most did the least.
Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Madam Speaker, let me yield 30 seconds to the gentleman from New Jersey, Congressman Payne.
Gentleman from New Jersey is recognized for 30 seconds.
I thank the chairman, I thank the speaker, and I would say to my friend on the other side of the aisle, there was no urgency in February when this was first brought to the president's attention. Madam Speaker, I rise today to support the fourth coronavirus stimulus. It is good to see both parties can come together to aid the country during a national crisis. But we have to use accountability. We must have accountability for the money that we provide. And we must get it to the people that need it the most. Like many members, I was not happy to hear of small businesses that could not get funds. We must do a better job in getting the funds to the people that need it the most, and that should be our commitment. And I yield back.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am proud to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Boss.
The gentleman from Illinois is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The last time I stood in this chamber is the first day that my district reported a COVID-19 fatality. At that time, on March 27th, my district had just 27 confirmed cases. As of today, the 12th district has 50 deaths and 862 confirmed cases. COVID has rattled our communities across this country, and our top priority should be and should always be keeping people safe. But the virus has also forced our economy into a grinding halt. Our small businesses are desperate for a lifeline, and for many, that lifeline is the PPP program. In Illinois, almost 70,000 loans were approved before funding ran out. But funding should have never allowed to have run out. We should have done our job. We should have come back, and politics should not have been played. The COVID-19 virus is not Republican. It is not Democrat. This hurting economy is not Republican. It is not Democrat. But yet we held up, and we will never know how many small businesses failed because politics was played rather than getting our jobs done. And with that, I yield back.
The gentleman from Massachusetts.
Pleased to yield 30 seconds to the gentleman from Rhode Island, the chairman of the Democratic Messaging Committee, Congressman Cicilline.
The gentleman from Rhode Island is recognized for 30 seconds. For 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
He's a good messenger.
I rise to support the interim relief package. Thanks to the strong leadership of the Speaker and our outstanding committee chairs, this bill helps small businesses, our hospitals, and a national testing strategy, which were not included in Senator McConnell's original bill. So thank goodness for their leadership. But, Madam Speaker, we also have to work hard to flatten this curve, and we have to do a lot more for America's working families. In the next phase of relief, we need to include recurring direct cash payments to workers, additional small business relief, aid to states and cities to pay first responders and their healthcare heroes that are on the front lines, and even more in unemployment benefits. our response must meet the gravity of the moment. I hope my colleagues on the other side of the aisle will join with us to make sure we respond to this issue in the way that is necessary and not resist efforts to help hospitals, to help workers, to help expand testing, all the things we know we need to do to defeat this pandemic. Thank goodness we stood up. Otherwise, we wouldn't have $75 million for healthcare workers, $25 million for testing, and all the other things which are in this bill to help the smallest of small businesses. And with that, I yield back.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Proud to yield 1 minute to gentleman from Florida, Mr. Spano.
The gentleman from Florida is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As the sole Florida member serving on the House Small Business Committee, I rise today in support of replenishing the Paycheck Protection Program. While the program is far from perfect, it's been undeniably effective. Before the original funds were exhausted, 88,000 businesses in my home state of Florida received almost $18 billion in forgivable loans, money that saved jobs and businesses all in just 13 days. But beyond numbers, what's important is the people that this program serves. I think of a family-owned bowling alley that's been in my district for almost 30 years, one that I took my kids to when they were growing up. With their PPP loan, they're now able to keep and pay their 90 employees and stay in business, so now my grandchildren can go there too. I think of a home health care provider that cares for senior citizens. With their PPP loan, they've kept a dozen employees on the payroll and can continue to care for our greatest generation. While no government program is perfect, this one undeniably helps people in difficult times, and for that, I support it. I yield back.
Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me yield 30 seconds to the gentleman from California.
The gentleman from California is recognized for 30 seconds.
Madam Speaker, the American people are generous and strong, and we will get through this if we stay united. To the mom and pop businesses in my district that haven't received a dime and the community health centers struggling to help their patients, you're why I got on a flight last night, and you're why we need to pass this bill today. And in the weeks ahead, it should be everyone's priority in this government to help our heroes on the front lines and those most in need, regardless of what state or city they're in. We are the United States of America, and we must stay united. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Please yield 1 minute to a key member of the Appropriations Committee. Gentleman from Nebraska, Mr. Fortenberry.
Gentleman from Nebraska is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Steve called me recently. He has one of the businesses that's been hardest hit by coronavirus. He's down 90%. We talked through some issues. Steve decided to fight back. He got in line early for the Paycheck Protection Program and made a decision to bring his employees back, and then he had a virtual ribbon cutting where he announced his reopening. Madam Speaker, our country is in dire need of some good news, and this PPP program has been a bright spot in the trauma that we have all faced here. Where I live, Madam Speaker, the banker knows the farmer, the banker knows the barber, the banker knows the cafe owner. CPAs, financial advisors, credit unions, we've all pitched in. This is what I call community solidarity. And it was clear from the beginning that this program would run out of money, and we've reached that point. This has been a bipartisan airlift, a lifesaver for so many people who make things with their own two hands and take care of others under their employ. I wholeheartedly support this bill.
Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Please to yield 30 seconds to the gentleman from New Jersey, Congressman Kemp.
The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized for 30 seconds.
Thank you for yielding. Madam Speaker, 5,000 of my fellow New Jerseyans have died, and many more will in the weeks to come. And still, we can't get enough tests for those who need it. We are the richest, most powerful country in the world, and we are now tired of excuses. We need a national testing program to let us know if our loved ones are healthy or sick, so we can reopen our country and help our small businesses. That's our challenge. It is what history will judge us by. Let us get it done. Thank you. I yield back.
Texas is recognized.
Madam Speaker, proud to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Biggs.
Gentleman from Arizona is recognized for 1 minute.
I thank the gentleman. Madam Speaker, the current bill provides $12 billion to jurisdictions that specifically authorize and encourages the use of surveillance and contact tracing. The bill does not define these terms. Does it allow big tech companies to surveil and trace American citizens and then turn that accumulated information over to government? How will this data be secured, stored, etc.? There are many questions that go unanswered. Not the least of these, however, is the question of how much longer the American people will acquiesce to unconstitutional and crushing government action. We need to open up America now. I call on our governors to free their citizens immediately. And with that, I yield.
Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to yield 30 seconds to the gentleman from Florida, Congressman Soto.
Gentleman from Florida is recognized for 30 seconds.
Madam Speaker, the true question we face in this pandemic is not when we will get out of this crisis, but how we will get out of this crisis. And the keys to our economic freedom lie in this bill. $25 billion for testing and monitoring, $75 billion for treatment, a national testing strategy, finally, and additional business help for our small businesses, including $370 billion and $60 billion for our smallest, most vulnerable businesses. If we commit to continue to focus on how to survive this pandemic, then my fellow Americans, we will.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I'm especially proud to yield 1 minute to the Leader of the Republican Conference, the gentleman from California, Mr. McCarthy.
Gentleman from California is recognized for 1 minute.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. I thank him for his service. Before I begin, I want to thank all of us for spending the time to be here today. But, Madam Speaker, I want to say to the families who are battling this virus, or to the families who have lost a loved one, if we would all pause to think about that. Not only did they lose a loved one, but they couldn't even be near them or with them in their time of need. I want them to know, from a Republican and Democrat side for the entire Congress, you are in our prayers and you will stay in our prayers. I also want to give a sincere thank you to all the essential workers on the front line of this crisis, not from the Republican leader, but from a very grateful nation. For the medical professionals, from the doctors, the nurses, the receptionists, we thank you for going to work. We know the fear that it brings. We know the fear that it brings when you go home to your families. And we're grateful. To the farmers who make sure we have food grown in America that's safe. Or the truck drivers who drive through the night to replenish the stores that we walk in to keep our distance to have the food. The postal workers, the warehouse workers, the clerks inside those stores who every day go to work. You are making a meaningful and measurable difference in the lives of our entire nation. We will be forever grateful for those who kept us safe, kept us healthy, and kept us fed. You deserve a government that strives to meet that very same level of dedication. That is the promise I will make, that we will bring the same dedication that you bring to help others that you don't even know. And we should rise to that occasion. This is a commitment we make to every American. We will fight this virus together until we defeat it together. We did not ask for this virus. We did not invite it. It came from a distant land. But together, we will defeat it, not only for our country, but for the world. To do that, Congress must act. And we will continue to act even if some in this body want to play politics. Even if we get something held up, we will stay at the table till we bring people together. We want to put people before politics.